Hey everybody. So we just finished our last wedding of the year here in California. It's been an incredible year. We've had so many amazing events, clients. It's just been one of the most amazing years for us. And we are definitely ready for a break. I actually have one more wedding. We're flying to Texas to be with family for the holidays at the beginning of December. And I'm also going to be documenting my cousin's wedding in Texas, which is going to be kind of fun. But as far as work goes out here in California, we're all done. And now it's just editing. Today, I want to share with you some of my thoughts around documenting receptions. The reception is one of my favorite times during a wedding day because it's sort of after the peak of the day, which I think is ceremony. And I think after ceremony, the day kind of opens up into the party, and the reception is just like this kind of like free celebration where the couple gets to mingle with their people and you share a meal and you're in this beautiful space. And there's a lot of, heart and humanity in the reception. And it can be challenging from a photographic perspective because reception is often when light is changing from day to evening. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of activity, there's food. There's so much opportunity for documentary moments, and it can be challenging to know how to capture it. So I think in order to tell you how I capture receptions, I'm going to take you into a recent gallery and just show you the photos from reception. By the way, all of my galleries, my wedding galleries, are shared via pic-time, and they are running a promotion right now. So if you're interested in getting yourself set up with the new gallery delivery service, this is the one that I highly recommend, and you can use my link in the description to get a free month. Right now, they're offering a big promotion for Black Friday, so it's a good time to sign up if you are interested. But let's dive in here. So in pic-time, you can curate the full gallery by, sections of the day. So we're going to jump right into reception. Now, this is different from reception details. I do have a reception detail folder right before the reception folder, but this is just going to be the actual reception itself. This is a good example of a reception and the challenges because this wedding had a lot of people. It was kind of in this big space, and there was a band and obviously dinner's happening and speeches are happening, dancing is happening, and it's also around sunset time. So we're going from day to night. So the way we're going to do this is I'm just going to go through and sort of talk through images. So as we come into the space, we see the band playing, we see wine being poured, a few photos of guests, people cheering as more and more people enter the space. I love these kind of like scene setting images that are almost nondescript of the beginning of dinner, wine being poured, like photos that sort of evoke the atmosphere without being too specific. So I really liked this one here as an example of that. I also love long tables. So anytime we can get long table shots, this is kind of like a messy long table shot at the beginning of people like arriving and sitting down and saying, hey, whatever. I love these kind of candids of guests. So finding couples or genuine moments and interactions. And this is a mix of film and digital. So like this is a good example of here's a digital photo and here's a film version of the same thing. I probably could have selected just one of these, but I left in both. Then they'll have like an option. They have two photos. But I like these kind of just cute photos of guests at tables looking at you if they want it, or if you see a couple and want to get them a photo. And then I also love candid photos like this where it's just like genuine moments happening at different tables. So I include a mix. I don't like go crazy trying to get photos like this. Here's something that I want to kind of share my opinion and see if you agree. But I think that at weddings now, at least for me and for our clients, I think our clients are hiring us to capture beautiful documentary photos that bring you back to the feeling of being at the event. And photos like this of like just guests smiling for the camera are nice when they're captured in high quality. But I think a lot of the weight of capturing photos of people just looking and smiling at the camera sort of falls to guests with their iPhones. Unavoidably at weddings, I'll be there with 3 professional cameras as a professional photographer who's hired to be there, who's paid a lot of money to be there. I'll be standing right next to a group of guests who completely ignore me and choose to capture photos like this on their phone and never even ask me to take a picture. I think people care more about the immediacy of having a photo of them and with their friends on their phone. They're not interested in a better quality photo because they will have to wait for that or they might never see it again. And so I might as well not exist, and it's hard not to take that personally, but I've gotten to a point of thinking like, okay, well, if that's how people sort of approach an event and think about an event these days, which it's at every wedding, this happens where I feel like I'm invisible next to people taking photos of their friends on their iPhones, then maybe I should just let that go as something that I have to do. I don't think it's the photographer's job in all situations to get a photo like this of every couple, of every guest, because people have phones, people have, those like point and shoot film cameras on the tables sometimes, or they bring their own little cameras. I kind of look at it as a releasing of that responsibility from me that allows me to capture photos when I'm drawn to a guest or a couple or something like that, or if they ask me directly to take their picture, of course I will. But I don't think it's the top priority on my list. I think my couples are more interested in us capturing more authentic moments like this, for example, which is just, I think, such a really fun, amazing kind of moment from this wedding that I'm able to capture and give them. This isn't necessarily artistic, but it is candid, right? So interesting. But here's an example of a coming back to this one. This is like, I would say, like almost more artful of this, candid moment. Let's look at some more. So photos like this as well, just more like documentary style. This one too here. So as we go through here, you can kind of see some more of those. Here's another one of the sort of scene setting shots with the wine being poured. I love getting photos like this where guests are viewing the menu. I feel like this is a much more natural photo of a menu, right? It's like in the hand of a person reading it at the table versus just like random photos of menus, but I like those too. Okay, so grand entrance. This was interesting lighting, but I think we were able to capture this pretty well. I have a lot of different photos of them entering the space. They were so happy, so cute. This is like such a good moment. And then they go right into first dance. One of the things that you have to think about with receptions is what cameras and lenses are you using before the couple enters. Like, we knew they were going to enter, so I had to be prepared with my equipment so that I could capture their entrance and their dance, because you might show up to a reception and think, oh, I'm going to shoot this on my 85, to not be in people's way or be too close to them and get some cool, like, artful photos with compression. But then the couple enters and they start dancing and you're like, oh crap, I have an 85. So I think just be aware of what's going to happen in the timeline, because things happen really quickly at receptions. You go from candid documentary photography of guests to grand entrance and first dance. So, every reception is different, but this is just a good example of that. So then we have a lot of photos of them dancing here. Just a beautiful first dance. They had it choreographed. It was great. They went right into a speech. So for this, we are moving from a dance into toast. And for toast, I like to have, like I was saying, like a different lens. So I like to have an 85 for toast, but I wouldn't use that for a first dance most of the time. So I have a bag with me. It's just like an Ona side bag where I can keep like extra lenses, an extra film camera or something to swap out, just various equipment. And that comes with me all day. And so I'll have that off to the side somewhere. So after their dance, I'll run off and switch my lens from my 50 or my 24 to 70 or 28 to 70, whatever I'm using, to an 85 or a tighter focal length. So that's what I think I did here to get photos of their speech, but also of the guests. I like having an 85 for any speeches during the day, especially in the evening, because they're brighter lenses. The primes are typically brighter, 1.4, 1.2. They also give you more reach, so you can get photos from further away. And I also just like it for like kind of the atmospheric quality that you can get from an 85mm lens with the compression and the separation, which we'll look at in a little bit. As with anything, I'm thinking about wides, mediums, and tights. So as you can see, these are kind of the tightest I would go here is like something like this. Great reactions of speeches. I also always try to get photos as soon as the toast starts. So this is a couple thank you toasts. It's a little bit different than like a friend toasting. I like to get them right as they start because typically when they stand up there with the microphone, they're about to talk, they'll smile and look natural. And then sometimes once people start talking, they get nervous or they get like really intense or focused or something, and then they're just making like a concentration face or a talking face, and it's not always the most flattering. And sometimes the only opportunity you have to capture a flattering photo is at the beginning of the toast. So that's just a tip. But anyway, wides, mediums, tights. So we start with tight, and then I have some wider shots here, and then I liked this kind of environmental shot, seeing them like through their guests, more examples of that. And then again, just like reactions, great reactions. See, like, I think like photos like this are why the couple hires us, because their friend's not going to necessarily get a photo like this with their iPhone, but I will get this photo. Same with something like this, you know, it's just photos like this, you know. These are some of my, you know, I love these candid moments like this, you know. How special to be able to look back at these photos. This is the groom's parents here with their friends. Okay, and then as we progress, food photos, you know. So the light is starting to get softer now. The sun's probably setting. This photo was on the Contax 645. I really like having these food photos on the Contax. I've shown you some food photos before in past videos. But I like seeing the food on the table and getting like a shot as soon as someone puts down the plates, because that's obviously like when the food is the most fresh and presentable, right? So I usually put in like a few options. Sometimes it's hard with like random things on the table like iPhones or sunglasses, but it also gives off the vibe of the event. And then I like kind of getting wides like this down the table where you see everything. So there's just this like salad service. People started dancing. We got some candids of that. Then more toasts. So you can see here, this is the bride's mom. She stood up there to toast. She smiles, right? So I got this photo straight off the bat, and she gave a lovely toast here and just reactions. So I always start getting photos of the toaster when they start, and then I'll move into reactions of guests. So that's what I've done here. I love any kind of photos like this where we can see through people. So we have like foreground elements here I think are really great. And then photos of the couple, obviously, in their reaction, photos of their family members and their like sort of key guests. And again, beautiful moments like this, like authentic moments with guests are great. And then of course, like the cheers moment, it's always good down a long table if they actually reach across and clink their glasses. But I love getting photos like this. It really is just so documentary feeling and fun. So more toasts here. This is the groom's grandma. She was such a character. I really loved her. She was so sweet. But I got some great photos of her during her shout out, which was really sweet. Yeah, so just generally lots of emotion, lots of reaction, solid photos of the toaster, solid photos of the couple and their table. These moments are so rich. I loved this moment actually after the groom's mom's toast. And here he is with his mom and dad, and they just shared this like beautiful moment together. So I think just like being aware of all the moments that are happening, not only during the toast, but before and after them as well. Some more food photos. It was a little bit darker now, so getting a little bit harder to capture good photos of food. It's sometimes just hard in general, but these are a couple of good examples here. And then I also like flash photos of the table on my Leica, like kind of like a wide flash photo of people eating. I feel like this is like just more raw documentary, not necessarily like beautiful, but I think it does help with bringing you back to that event. And some of them, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. It kind of depends on the layout of the frame. So I'm always trying to find certain moments that work, but sometimes you get something that's like really, really great. Here's just a few examples. I usually like getting a photo like this of the couple too, just of them sitting and smiling and looking at me, which is kind of nice just to see themselves at their table. Okay, and then once it gets a little bit darker, I love getting photos like this, wide open on a prime lens. Okay, and then this was actually one of my favorite photos. And This was on a Canon camera on a tripod. I think we had the 70-200 on it at 70 millimeter, maybe. I can't really remember, but I love getting these long exposures. And how you do this is you need a tripod to do it really well. I have found that my favorite settings for this is an exposure of 15 seconds on a tripod. And then I'll just adjust the aperture as closed down as possible, like as much as the lens will let me close the aperture so that we have plenty of depth of field. And then I need to adjust the ISO depending on the exposure parameters. But basically, it's a really long exposure with a lot of depth of field. I'll put my focus point at the center of the table. So the floral design and the candles and the table stays in focus, but all of the guests fall out of focus into this like movement and motion because they're moving and eating and talking and laughing and all of that. So you get this great emotion, this like life happening around the table. And these photos are just interesting and bring you back to the reception. And they can be really successful in getting across the atmosphere of an event. So I really love these kind of photos. Okay, and recently I've been shooting more ambiently with my Canon film camera. And so here's just a couple exposures like that. And I just like it for the quality of the film, a little bit underexposed, a little bit kind of like artsy, but it really, again, helps to get the story across of this reception. So I was really happy with these photos. More toast. Now it's getting a little bit darker. So in the evening, I'm mostly using available light from candles and string lights or any lighting that they've had installed. And I basically don't use flash on any camera other than my Leica. So I'll have a flash on my Leica with a 35 millimeter lens usually. And so I can get some flash photos like this, but usually I'm shooting ambiently just because I prefer the look of the photos. And also I think it's a better experience for the guests not to have a flash going off all the time. But I do like the look of flash on film. So I'll have it on my Leica M6 and my flash is so small that it's comfortable to carry around with me. But otherwise I'm shooting ambiently. So you can see most of these are ambient exposures, probably with my 85 1.4 on my Sony. But if you have a wide aperture lens, like a 1.4 or 1.2, this is the situation where you really need those lenses because they make a big difference in being able to capture these kinds of documentary photos at receptions. And then, like I mentioned, I am shooting film ambiently as well, which obviously does not have as high of a quality as digital because film is a medium that really likes a lot of light. But I do like having a few ambient film photos in the gallery just to get across the feeling and to sort of tie everything together. And then after speeches, I like getting kind of flash photos of hugs and things like this because I think it's a great way to get across emotion. And I think film and like the Leica specifically is a great medium for capturing moments like this. And then one last ambient film photo, which kind of like puts a cap on this collection of reception photos. Okay, there you go. I hope that was helpful to look through some of those photos. I think the biggest thing is having an understanding of your cameras and your equipment. The biggest challenge of receptions is the slow transition from day to night. So you have to think about being prepared with your equipment. Typically, I'll have a bag with me with a zoom lens and a flash for my digital camera, and I'll also have primes for my digital camera. So I could potentially start the evening with the zoom lens for the entrance and the dance, switch to a prime for the toast and the ambiance as the light sort of goes from dusk to night, and then eventually switch back to a flash if I absolutely need to, if there's not enough light, or at least I'll have the flash for the dancing that will happen right after the reception. And then I'll need to make sure that I have film cameras ready to go with primes, also a flash for my Leica, and a wider lens for my Leica. Typically, I'm shooting manually once we go from day to night. Like once it's dark around sunset, I'll be shooting manually. This year was the first year that I started shooting aperture priority most of the time. So during the day, while the sun is out, I'm shooting an aperture priority. But Once we go to evening, I find that it doesn't work as well for me. I like to have more control of the settings. So I'll switch to manual with auto ISO sometimes, and just select a shutter speed that I'm comfortable with based on the ambient lighting. And then with film cameras, I sort of will do the same thing. If I'm shooting ambiently, I'll just drop the shutter speed really low, open the aperture all the way, and then just meter for exposure and get as much light as I can. And with my Leica, I'll be in manual with a flash as well. So I think the combination of ambient digital photos, ambient film photos, flash film photos, is really, really successful and creates sort of a cohesive, well-rounded, interesting gallery of images. And I think for me, at least, capturing receptions like this is a way of bringing the viewers back to this event. So anyway, that's that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful for you. If you did, please give it a like. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel. I'd love to see you at the next video. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.